Now, first of all, I'm not getting free meals at the Waffle House by doing this series of sermons. I've been accused of that, but I have not been in a Waffle House since I started, nor do I plan on going on one till this is over, because I'm afraid I don't know what. Anyway, if you hadn't been here, Penny and I had a little episode last summer where we ran into a tire on the interstate, and we ended up with some damage to our car, and we're sitting at the rest area at mile marker 42 on I-75 north from Chattanooga to Knoxville. All right, it's between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. We're dressed for travel, shorts, t-shirts. I don't carry much cash, so I had about over $14 on me. And our phones are both dying. Okay? So we go inside the rest area. We're waiting on the tow truck, but our phones are dying. We're not sure they'll find us. So we undo the luggage. We get the chargers out of the luggage. We walk inside and we sit on the floor right outside the men's bathroom. We're sitting there with our phones plugged into the wall, waiting, looking outside, waiting on the tow truck to come in. People are looking at us like we are in desperate need of help. Just put it that way. Nobody offered to help, but they looked at us like we needed it. So we're sitting there, and like I said, it was not the most joyous mood I've ever had. And the tow truck gets there. But the tow truck comes with a man and a woman, a couple, working together. And I said, how are we going to get somewhere? I'm thinking we'll probably end up riding in our car on top of the tow truck. And it just gets more and more humorous. And the guy says, well, I tell you what, I've got another truck. I'll have him come get you because we can't get all your stuff in the tow truck. So here we are about 9:45. And the other truck comes. And he picks us up, and here we are riding in a truck up I-75 at 9:45 at night. And we're sweaty, and we're hot, and it's an unair-conditioned truck. And we get to the Waffle House, our destination of choice, because it was the only place we knew would be open in Athens, Tennessee after midnight. We had to wait 3 hours on a ride. We get there, and in that 7 miles, we had talked a little bit. Where do you do? How long you been doing this? How'd you learn to drive a tow truck? That kind of stuff. And we got to the Waffle House, and I pulled out all my earthly belongings, all $12 or $14. And I said, here, this is for you. And he said, oh, no, mister. I won't take any money. I won't take any money. And I said, what? He said, this is how I help people. This is how I help people. Now look, Saturday night, called away from home, comes down to the interstate, drives us up the highway. This is how I help people. So we go in. We go in with all of our $12 or $14 still intact. Phones half charged. Ready to ask the Waffle House if they had plugs where we could charge them up some more. How in the world can Christians make an impact in a secular society? That's the question I want you to ponder with me this morning on Mother's Day. How can we make a difference in an increasingly secular society? I want you to look at the scripture. It's 1 John chapter 4. It's some of the simplest but most profound scriptures in all the Bible. We love because he first loved us. Whoever claims to love God yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother or sister, whom they have seen, cannot love God, whom they have not seen. And he has given us this command. Anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister. Simple. Listen again. Whoever claims to love God yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. Now, it's highly likely John wrote these words when he was living in Ephesus. Ephesus was a major city in Turkey. It was a place where the church was getting a very small foothold, just a baby church at best. All around them, everywhere you look in Ephesus, there are temples to false gods. And there are also temples to emperors, because by this time the Roman emperor had declared himself a god. And Christians were accused of being atheists because they did not worship the emperor. You get that? So here's the reality. There is no way the Christian church can ever make a difference if they try to use power or guilt or anger. They will be crushed by the Roman emperor. They'll be mocked by the people around them. They will have absolutely no impact on the world whatsoever. So John chooses a different strategy, and I think it's a strategy that tells us all about God. John chooses the strategy for the church to make an impact, and that strategy is very simple. It's love. And I want you to see this morning with me, why did John choose love as the strategy to grow the church in Ephesus, and maybe to grow the church in our somewhat secular society today? The first reason is very, very simple. Because God loved us first. Now, we get to our destination at the Waffle House, luggage in towed. Penny was eating some sort of special stuff, so she has a cooler with her. So we're sitting there in this booth. I'm sitting there with the luggage. She's sitting there with her cooler. We aroused some curiosity. People began looking at us like, when you ride up to the Waffle House in a tow truck, it's almost like going in a limousine. It just has a special ambiance about it. And people look at you kind of weird. And so we aroused some curiosity. Over a course of a couple of hours, I kept wondering if we needed to keep the booth or go outside and wait on the sidewalk. I kept the booth. Kept drinking coffee. After a while, I heard the waitresses start whispering to each other about us. One waitress said this, and I quote, "Most people catching the bus aren't here this long." I thought, well, this may be the end. They're about to toss us out. I guess the bus stops at the Waffle House in Athens. I'm not sure. But what we got was kindness and compassion and grace and love, not just from a couple of waitresses, but from a guy that drove a tow truck on Saturday night. They didn't have to be nice to us. We weren't going to be there long. We'd never see him again. We didn't live near there. But they chose, these relatively unknown folks, chose to treat us like they loved us, even though we were in no position to influence them whatsoever. And that, I think, is why John says to the church at Ephesus, here's what we're about. God loved us before we ever loved God. On Mother's Day, I think that's particularly pertinent because you know, if you're a mom, you know that you loved that child long before it was born. You loved every child you gave birth to months before he or she was born. That business of God loved us first, I think, has a lot of pertinence for us today. But In Ephesus, you see, I want you to just imagine Ephesus had 100,000 people, okay? Twice the size of Kingsport. If the numbers are correct, there were 40 Christians there. 40. Fewer that are in this section right over here. In a whole city of 100,000. There was no way under heaven they were going to make an impact unless they were different. Second thing I want you to see this morning is this. When people understand that you and I are Christians, when people understand that you and I represent God, quite often they're watching to see if we have God's love in us. There's no worse public relations for Christianity than grumpy, irritable, self-righteous, pharisaical, judgmental Christians who look down our noses at the rest of the world. It's the worst advertising God has. So this morning, I want to turn the tables. A lot of you are going to be going out to lunch today. It's Mother's Day. You're going to take Mom out to eat. You know the group of people that probably knows your mood most on Sunday? It's not your Sunday school teacher. It's not the person you sit by. It's not the person you sing with. It's the person who waits your table at lunch. And today, when you go to lunch on Mother's Day, they're going to hear you talking. They're going to watch your behavior. They're going to see how you tip. And guess what? To those folks, you're going to be the representative of God. What kind of representative are you going to be? I want you to try something today. When you go to lunch, I want you to pretend that your waiter or your waitress needs to be loved by a mama. I want you to pretend that your waiter or waitress needs a mother's love. And even if the order comes out bad, I want you to pretend that that person is somebody you can show God's grace to. Because you see, on a dark and not stormy night, it was those folks in an inexpensive restaurant and in a tow truck that showed me love and me grace. Two quotes I want to leave with you this morning. First is by somebody that some of you may remember. I don't think he was a Christian, but his quote leaves me thinking. His name was Jimi Hendrix. Any of y'all old enough to remember Jimi Hendrix? Some of y'all know Jimi Hendrix. So Jimi Hendrix, this is a quote I think is really good for Mother's Day. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. That sounds a lot like Jesus, doesn't it? I know Jimi Hendrix isn't Jesus, don't hear me wrong, but listen to that again. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. But it's this one I want to leave with you that I think is much more like a mother. I want you to think about this with me. Life is better when you think about how your actions will affect others instead of how your actions will affect you. You want to hear that again? Life is better when you think about how your actions will affect others instead of how your actions will affect you. It's Saturday night in your world. And maybe there's somebody in need. And maybe there's somebody who just needs a little love. Maybe just a ride in a truck. Maybe just a kind word in a diner. I don't know where you'll go this week. I don't know who you'll see. But odds are you're going to run into somebody who needs a word of love, who needs just to understand that you're thinking about how they feel more than how you feel. And when you do that, you'll not only be like a mother, more importantly, you'll be like Jesus. We love. Why? Because God loved us first.